we're going to talk about how to play with the wrist. Listen to these two ways of playing. That's the first way. And that's the second way. If you notice the first way, I wasn't moving my wrist. I was only moving from my shoulder, and I also had a very stiff elbow. Now I'm going to make my elbow and wrist fluid. And the bow stays straight. In this video, I want to give you some exercises just to start out feeling more awareness of the joints that have to move during the bow stroke and how to achieve a more flexible and a fluid wrist. So we're going to start out by putting the violin down and just doing a few exercises to get familiar with the joints here in our arm. If you only move from joint 1 here in the shoulder, it's going to move back and forth like this. Many times when people look at a violinist or watch an orchestra, they don't realize that the bow arm does not move like this. It really moves more in this sort of a motion. And this is actually a complex motion going diagonally across the body. One of the things I like to do to start out getting used to this is to take your wrist and touch your nose. Act like you're smelling something on your wrist. Smell the perfume. If you don't like perfume, do chocolate. Exaggerate this motion and actually touch your nose. And you want to have your hand not pushing out to the front or pushing out to the side. This will make the bow go awkward directions as well. You want to have the arm just dropping down to the belly button. For younger children, I like to also start out in the beginning by doing the bird stroke, bending the wrists toward the ceiling and toward the floor. And you can combine this with some breathing as well. Inhale on the upstroke, exhale on the downstroke. And this feels really good. You should stop the video now and try this for a few times and get the hang of it. I also like to do seaweed arm, making sure that all the joints are moving, because if we hold a joint, it's not going to produce a good sound. So we want every joint to be flexible and moving, and however much we can pretend that we're seaweed or that we're blowing in the wind, we'll achieve that fluidity in the arm. And then you can take a coin and set it on your wrist right at the top, and I'm placing it between the end of the first finger and the wrist bone, right adjacent to the thumb. Balance it on top of your hand, and you're going to make it go back and forth, up and down, in that diagonal bow stroke motion. Again, making the wrist move, and I just dropped it. You're going to drop it a few times as you try it first, and if you do, just put it right back. And as you get better at this motion, you will experience that you can keep it on there. You may have to move the coin around a little bit in order to find the right spot. Stop the video and see if you can get the hang of this exercise. And then once you've been able to balance a coin on your wrist, you can take the bow now and put your left arm out straight and just balance the bow on it. These are your pretend strings. And then deliberately stiffen up your joints again and see what happens to the bow. And then now make the elbow and wrist fluid, and recall this idea of touching your nose with your wrist. You can even exaggerate and do that a few times. And as you do that, you'll realize that the bow stays straight. Once you've done that set of exercises, then you can pick up your violin again, and just on the open string with pepperoni pizza rhythm, see if you can keep the wrist fluid and the arm fluid as you do that rhythm. You'll know immediately immediately if you're stiffening up because the bow is moving in a curve and is sliding back and forth across the fingerboard. Practice in a mirror, because if you watch your bow, you can always tell which direction it's moving. Another exercise I like is called rainbow, where you move the bow up and down across the strings, imagining you're drawing a rainbow in the air. And as you do this, lead up with the wrist, like you're touching your nose, smelling the perfume, and down with the elbow. Up with the wrist, down with the elbow. Try to get the whole arm involved, and again, the fluidity of the motion in the wrist and elbow is key here. And then from here you want to take an easy piece, something that you know well, something that you don't have to think about very hard, and just really pay attention to the amount of bow you're using so that you stay in the middle and on each bow stroke, particularly the up bows, try to see if you can get that wrist flexibility to start happening. If you'll use these exercises daily for the next several weeks, you'll be surprised at what a great deal of progress you'll make in achieving a flexible wrist and a better bow stroke.